This is The Real Story with Michelle Makori.
Today we're talking about something small that tells a very big story. The United States has stopped minting the penny after more than 232 years of production. And sure, the headlines make it sound like a minor footnote. A tiny coin nobody uses anymore finally gets retired. But this is a signal about the value of money, about inflation, and about the quiet debasement of our currency. Now, back in February, President Trump ordered the Treasury Department to stop minting pennies. His argument was that pennies cost more to mint than they're worth, calling the production wasteful. He said the move would rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time. And that arguably was the right call, but with that, we saw the end of an era. The last penny ever to be made was struck at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia on November 12th.
The cost savings of ending penny production will save the American taxpayer approximately $56 million a year in just production cost alone. Now I'm going to repeat that. We're going to save the taxpayers of America $56 million a year. I think that deserves a round of applause.
That was Treasurer Brandon Beach as he pushed the button for the last time on the penny-making machine at the Mint, and the room erupted in applause. But this isn't cause for celebration. And here's the number that matters most. It costs 3.69 cents to mint a 1-cent coin. When your smallest unit of money costs almost 4 times its value to make, the problem is not the coin, the problem is the dollar. Now, the penny has been in a slow motion collapse for more than a century. When the penny was first made, just years after the country was founded, 1 cent could buy Americans a biscuit, some candy, or a candle. Well, now, of course, a penny will get you absolutely nothing. The original American 1-cent coin, introduced under the Coinage Act of 1792, was large, heavy, and made of copper. 1 cent actually carried purchasing power. And then the penny shrank in 1856 because the value behind the currency could not justify that much metal anymore. In 1909, the Lincoln cent arrived, still 95% copper, but even that became unsustainable. During World War II, the Mint switched to steel pennies because the copper was needed for the war effort, and that was the first dilution. Then came 1982, the turning point. Inflation made copper too expensive, and the Treasury officially debased the penny by switching it to 97.5% zinc with just a thin copper coating. That was a structural downgrade. The metal inside the coin had to be cheapened because the purchasing power of the dollar could no longer support real copper. And even after that, the cost to produce the penny was still almost 4 times its value. The life and now the death of the penny is a textbook example of currency debasement. A coin that once held real copper, real purchasing power, and real value has gradually been hollowed out, first in metal content, then in buying power, and now in existence itself. So what happens next? Well, the penny is still legal tender, and there are an estimated 300 billion pennies in existence, many sitting in jars, under couches, or in piggy banks. Now, granted, many people make digital transactions anyway, but when the penny is gone, every cash transaction gets rounded to the nearest nickel. And rounding up is a quiet price increase. It's inflation, without anyone admitting it. But leaning on the nickel doesn't help at all because producing 1 nickel costs nearly 14 cents. So if the country compensates for the loss of pennies by minting more nickels, well, the Treasury loses even more money. And if the nickel eventually gets phased out and transactions jump to rounding at 10 cents, consumers get hit with even higher effective prices. Now, this is the predictable sequence. First, the metal gets diluted, then the coin becomes uneconomical. Then the denomination disappears, and every step tells you something about the health of the currency underneath. So here's the question people should be asking. If the smallest unit of money has no purchasing power left, what does that say about the whole system? Because when your base unit fails, everything above it becomes vulnerable. And that is how debasement has played out in every declining monetary regime in history. First you tinker with the metals, then you remove the low denominations, and then the public realizes that the currency is losing integrity. This is a warning signal. It tells you the value structure under the dollar is eroding in real time. But the United States is not alone here. Other countries have already gone down this path. Canada scrapped its penny in 2013. Australia eliminated its 1 and 2 cent coins. New Zealand did the same. The Netherlands, South Africa, and many others removed low coins. Even the United Kingdom has gone years without minting new 1 or 2 pence coins and retired the halfpenny decades ago. But here's a distinction that matters. Those currencies are not the backbone of the global financial system. They are not the world's reserve currency. So when the United States can no longer economically produce its smallest denomination, it lands very differently. And that brings us to gold. Gold's chart isn't showing gold rising necessarily, it's showing the dollar falling. Gold acts as the benchmark of real value when fiat currencies weaken. And when a monetary system reaches the point where its smallest unit can no longer exist economically, well, investors start asking a simple question. What holds value when the currency below it doesn't? The answer has been the same for thousands of years: gold. And that is why gold will continue to hit new highs. And that is the real story.
This is The Real Story with Michelle Makori.